chat is on the chat session on Zoom, you can just click on all panelists, or you can just post it up there. Harshad, you can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. That is Susan from Chattanooga. Awesome. Good. Everybody else can hear me then. Perfect. So we'll get started. It's about 11:56 Central here right now. All right. Big Rapids, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma.
Great.
It's going to all panelists. So give us about another 4 or 5 minutes. Let's people trickle in. Some quick housekeeping items as we get started. We will be recording this webinar, and we will send out a recording to everybody. So, and then so you can have it, and also the slides. We'll just send it out right after the webinar. We'll record it and send the slides out as well as the recording along with it in an email to everybody. And it's pretty straightforward. You don't have to do anything to do that. Let me see. There's a couple of people asking questions, maybe. Awesome. Just give us 2 more minutes. Yeah, mostly I think everybody's from the States over here today. So, although we did send out the invite to a lot of universities outside the US also. Let's see if somebody from timing wise, I don't know whether it's exactly right. Definitely Asia is going to be difficult, but Europe also might be difficult. Late evening, I think. But let's see. So we have 30 participants so far. We'll get started a little. I'll give another minute or two for the stragglers to come in. Well, I think everybody shows up usually 1 or 2 minutes late, or 3 minutes late. So I'm going to give another 2 or 3 minutes for people to roll in. To all the folks who are just coming in, it'd be nice to just post a thing on chat on your through Zoom as to where you're from. So we all know where you're coming from, maybe the city and state. Uh, just to get connected over here. Couple of people from Big Rapids, Michigan. Knoxville, yes. UT. I'm hoping somebody from Texas shows up. I just moved to Austin about a month ago. Oh, Saudi Arabia, awesome. That's represent over there. Yeah.
Looks
Oh,
like
El
you're also
Paso's,
Tamam.
yeah, awesome, perfect. Represent. And El Paso's here, awesome. You know,
Great.
go Texas. I'm just trying to figure out the accent over here. I've lived in San Francisco and Seattle, and I guess Mexico. Yes, perfect. So we got some international coverage over here. A couple more folks from Tennessee. So awesome. So I think I'll get started in about another minute or so. Awesome, let's just get started. So let me see if I can go back into presentation mode. Awesome. So thank you, everybody. Super excited that all of you guys could join, and frankly, super excited that we have folks from Mexico as well as Saudi Arabia out here. I'm sure the time zones, I'm not even sure the time zone difference between Saudi Arabia and here is, but uh, so quick background about myself. I'm one of the founders here at QuestionPro. I started the company actually quite a while ago, about 15 years ago, I think, 2005. Ran the company for about 4 or 5 years, and then took a break, and then I'm running the company again for the last 4 or 5 years again. Did a couple other startups in between. And super excited to be part of QuestionPro again. My background is in computer science and computer engineering. I went to BYU in Utah, and then kind of was a tech guy. Then at some point, I figured I should stop working for other people and start my own company, start and build the software. So I'm very deeply involved in software engineering, and that's kind of obviously my background. So it's easy for me. But on the internet, I pretend to be. I guess my mom told me I could be whatever I can, and so I'm on the internet. I pretend to be whatever I need to be. So today, let's talk about. I'm super excited about this new product that we are. We call it a new product. It's slightly different than our current survey platform, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are already familiar with or are using. And today we are launching a new kind of. We're not fully launching, in full launch mode yet. It's still in beta, so we really wanted to give all our kind of academic customers an early access and early release of the product. So realistically, let's kind of like dive into it. So the main problem that we are trying to solve is what we call real-time polling in classrooms and in-person events. So the idea here is to say, obviously, if you think about what we do for our core business, which is surveys, we collect data, but it's done asynchronously. What it means is we are, people send out surveys and people can take the surveys, not in real time. I mean, you get the data in real time, but you're not in the same location. We wanted to kind of, we stepped back and said, okay, how do we solve the problem of 40 people in a room just like this right now? So we have about 40 or 50 people, virtual room or a physical room, doesn't really matter. And we wanna pulse you, and we wanna ask you a few questions. We wanna understand kind of the how everybody's thinking. And do that at scale, at structure, in a reasonably easy and simple way. So key ideas that we wanted to kind of think about. Everybody's got a smartphone, kind of the default behavior across the board. We can use that smartphone for real-time interaction and real-time kind of quizzing, if you will. Does not massively, I would say, I wouldn't argue it's a massively new concept, but what we are trying to do is definitely innovate in terms of the user experience as well as the fluidity of the user experience. A lot of people, you have to download and install an app and do a whole bunch of different things just to take a survey. That's not going to work. I mean, nobody's downloading. I mean, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to install an app just to take a poll in a classroom. So those are some kind of technical challenges we had that we wanted to overcome, to say like, look, anybody can jump onto a poll anytime, get real-time data, and then process that. Uh, uh, the other kind of element that we really wanted to get into is kind of engagement. We want to make this polling kind of experience highly engaging and make sure that people are kind of almost addicted to it. Because when we are presenting, we want people to be engaged with us, and that's natural. Either it's in a classroom setting, or it's in a webinar, or even in a conference. All these three kind of scenarios is what we are really primarily targeting effectively. There are two, there are two different kind of models that we are kind of thinking about, and the third model is the trivia model. The first model is obviously polling. So it's just like, I want to get a temperature of what people are thinking, how you feel about certain things. And I don't want all my audience to go ahead of me. So if I am the presenter, I don't want the audience to go ahead of me. So if I'm telling you question one, so everybody can answer question one, and then wait, and we talk about it, and then we go to question two, and so on and so forth. Second part that we're thinking about is quizzes as a use case. So, the big difference between a poll and a quiz is, a quiz has a correct answer, a poll is just an opinion. And then there's a third component that we are kind of toying around with, what we are calling trivia. It's almost exactly like a quiz, except that in the trivia model, if you answer the question incorrectly, you're out of the game. It's kind of a sudden death kind of scenario. Whereas with quizzes, you get points, and then if you answer the question incorrectly, obviously you get less points, but you're not dead in the water. Whereas in the trivia model, the idea here is like, okay, look, if you answer the question incorrectly, you don't advance to the next round, if you will. So those are three broad kind of models that we are thinking about. We've already implemented. Today, I'm actually going to walk you guys through an actually live implementation. So we'll just do the whole thing live with all 40 of you, so that you get a feel for how it works actually. So we've already implemented polls and quizzes. Trivia is coming out, probably come out in late March or early April is when it will come out with the trivia model also. Okay. So this gives you kind of there's a lot of stuff flying around in the screen over here. And what there are two or three kind of areas or kind of sections of the experience. The first one is kind of, how do you get people in a room? And we've kind of really thought about it. It's very difficult to send URLs, especially in a physical room, for example. So imagine you're in a seminar, or you're in a classroom, and you want, there are 15 people. Asking everybody to go to like, hey, go to QuestionPro.com/778525 is super annoying from a practical perspective. So we've kind of thought about that a little bit, and we've come up with this pin model that we've actually tested it in physical areas, and it's working really well. So people go to a simple URL and they type in a 4-digit pin code to get in there. Everybody's used this 4-digit pin code model, and and people are kind of generally, from an operational perspective, it's super easy to tell people, hey, go somewhere and enter 5532. So that's a simple way of getting in there. The second component is like, hey, look, when you're in the room, keep them engaged, give some trivia questions and answers, and then you go through the poll, and answer the questions. The whole thing is real time, and I'll show it to you in a minute. The whole thing is real time. As people are answering the questions, the presenter can show the results, play around with it, and collect the data. We talked about Playerup. The one thing that I want to talk about is that we've kind of really thought through is answering the question. And this actually, this model came about, we were using it internally for a lot of our kind of in-person company events. And if you think about in the quiz model, we had quite a few number of people who were answering the questions correctly, but they were all kind of obviously, if you answer the question correctly, all of you get the same number of points. Let's assume you get 50 points for answering the question correctly. Then one of our developers actually, he came up with a bright idea. He's like, dude, let's kind of bring in the element of speed into the conversation. What it means is, if you answer the question faster, if you answer the question correctly, you get 50 points. But if you answer the question correctly and you answer it faster than me, then you should get, you should be somehow rewarded for that. So as you can see on the screen, so the person who's answering, so what we did was, if let's assume you get 100 points all up, 50 points for answering the question, and the rest of the 50 points is divided between the time allocated. So let's say we allocate, 10 seconds to answer the question. If you answer the question in the first second, then you are in the top 90th percentile, which means you get 90% of 50 points, which is approximately 40 points approximately, or 45. And so you get 95 points. So when we actually implemented this, what the behavior we saw was that insane amount of engagement. Now, everybody knew that, not only did you have to get the answer correctly, you have to get the answer fast in order to go up on the leaderboard. So that's kind of an important element that we think, again, going back to our core principles. Our core principles was making sure that we have everybody engaged in this process. And so that people are not, floating around, checking out their Facebook and Twitter and screwing around with their phones. They need to be engaged with the presenter. So that's one of the core kind of principles that we wanted to solve for. And I think, we think that we've actually solved it with this kind of a simple hack around, like, look, we tell everybody, like, look, you can answer the question, but if you're slow to answer the question, the guy who answered the question faster than you gets more points than you. As simple as that. And if you want to be number one, which we all want to be number one, clearly, and then you gotta pay attention and be engaged for you to answer the question. The other thing that you'll notice over here is that, and it's by conscious design, that the question that we ask is on the presenter screen. Only the answers are presented on the device. And that's a very conscious decision we've made. Again, the goal of this tool is really to make sure that the focus is on the presenter, the focus on the either in an academic setting, it'll be the professor, or in a conference setting, it'll be the presenter, if you will. So our thesis is that if the question and answer both show up on the phone, then there's no reason for you to look up. There's no reason for you to pay attention to what's going on kind of collectively, that we're all working on this. But if the question shows up on the main screen, only the answers show up on the device. So that's a very conscious decision we've made. It's a little controversial. A few of our early beta customers are like, I don't know, that's a good idea or a bad idea. We think it's a good idea. Clearly, that's why we did it. We think that focuses the respondents to actually pay attention to what's going on the screen, rather than futzing around with their phones effectively. So that's kind of the other thing that we've innovated on. Then the rest is kind of leaderboards and reports. This, I wouldn't say there's massive amount of innovation here. It's pretty standard par for the course. Once you answer the survey, you get to see how you answered. You get to see how this leaderboard is what kind of drives. On the right-hand side, as you see, the leaderboard is what drives kind of the engagement. It's like, oh, look, you know what? I'm Carl, and I get to beat John, and I got 895 points. I need to get a few more points next question. I'm going to try to answer it faster, and so on and so forth. So the leaderboard drives, obviously, the competitive element of this, and then drives engagement through that process. So the rest is fairly straightforward. I mean, the analysis on this is reasonably straightforward. Effectively, I'm going to jump in and kind of actually go through the poll itself and have you guys actually go through a quiz session. It'll be fairly straightforward. Let me just close this out, move this away. So a little bit of housekeeping also, like when you log into QuestionPro, you should see a section for live polls. You come to the live polls section into real-time polling. You'll see a screen like this. Effectively, in this particular case, obviously, I'm already logged into my account. And by the way, just kind of this tool is available. We are actually not even charging for this tool. It's a free tool that we plan on making it available to all our customers across the board. So not only you guys, any student accounts, anybody else, professor, students, anybody can use this. We see this as frankly as a free tool that we plan on offering across the board not only in the academic setting, but even on the commercial side, we are not actually charging for it. And obviously charging, it's part of the, I guess one way to think about it is you're already paying for it. Another way to say is you're not charging for it. It's part of our platform. And I guess there's no additional fee to it would be probably a better explanation. So you would create, just like how you create a survey, you can create, any number of polls or quizzes. And here's an example of a trivia that I got. I'm not going to scroll down because we're actually going to run this trivia. One of the things that we did that was interesting as we talked to customers is, as people come in, we wanted to profile them. So this is a question that, as you log in, you'll go through this process of like, look, we wanted to see how, males responded versus females, or, students respond versus, professors. You can create your own kind of segmentation model for the cohort that you're working with, and you can create profiling. And what that does is, when you obviously when you analyze the data, when you look at the data, you can do some cohort analysis very easily, saying that, hey, how did males respond versus how did females respond, and so on and so forth. So that is under the profile tab. The workspace is very similar to your survey tab that you probably are very used to. You can add a question. You can scrolling down, which I shouldn't, but anyway, you can go through this process. So I'm gonna actually do a live poll with you guys. I hit the start button. I say like, okay, this is the academic webinar session. I'm gonna give everybody, I don't know, 20 seconds to respond. Is that fair enough? Let's see. Start on full screen. So when I do this, so if you guys have phones, and clearly all of you guys have a phone with you, so if you can go to QuestionPro.io and type in that, wow, people are fast, and type in 2007, right? Just go on your phone. And as you can see, Frank, Lars, Kim, Joe, these guys are all coming in. 2007, I'm gonna join the poll too. And Harshad's here. And so right after you must have joined, you should have seen the kind of profiling question that you selected your gender into. Still have a small bug over here. We should, this thing is getting scaled in and out effectively. Let me see, there's a question coming up. Check. All right. All right, so you can see we have about 25 users. So this, as you can see, it's pretty easy to get people onto the session. And then when you're ready, we'll start this. Let me give it another, let's say we'll start with the, all right, let's get started. All right, so as you can see, this is the question that shows up. Which of these chess figures is related to Bohemian Rhapsody? Obviously, I know the answer, but anyway, go ahead. So as you answer it correctly, you get 50 points for answering it, 50 points for speed. And you can see the number going up. That means about 25 people, 26 people have answered this question. And there you go. Most of it got it right. I guess three of it didn't get it right. And here's your kind of leaderboard, if you will. So Lisa and Kim and David were the fastest, I guess, in terms of answering that question, and clearly the rest are slower. So that's why they're down below in the leaderboard. This 100% represents what percentage of all the questions have they answered correctly. So it's kind of another kind of piece of data, like, okay, are you answering the questions correctly or not? So here's another question. Mount Rushmore, who's in the leftmost? I don't know, but I can guess, I think. So there we go. We got about 25, 28. Let's go. I can, you don't have to wait for the whole timeout to finish up. So you can just say, I'm done. And again, most of us got it right, but a few of us got it wrong, frankly. So, and we go forward. All right. Adele performed. I didn't know that because I was testing it. Adele performed with James Bond movie. I had no idea, but I'm not steeped in pop culture yet. So as you can see, 32 people have answered. I can just wait and go forward. All right, good. Casino 9, people are gonna swap between Casino Royale and Skyfall. All right, so you can keep going. I mean, obviously it's not that complicated. You just can keep going this way. What did Alfred Nobel develop? Dynamite. I'm gonna give you the answer. I'm gonna cheat over here. Yeah, it's dynamite. I don't know that either, but hey. So we're just going to go through this. I'm going to go through this really fast, and so that uh, which restaurant franchise advises you eat fresh. All right. So on your screens, you'll be seeing some sort of a rolling counter of points, so you know how many points you've had. So for example, so far I have had 442 points as I'm going along with you guys. Um, and then the leaderboard shows clearly like, okay, look, you are, I'm at 442. Yeah, okay, right there. So, and you can see on your screen. So while we wait, you can see, I'm at, I guess, number 5, and Tom and Lisa are ahead of me, and Levi and Sarah are behind me. On your screen also, and even if you are like, let's say you're Harshad, in his screen he's seeing Kim and Doug ahead of him, and Bonnie and Joe below him. So we are kind of keeping the engagement alive by saying even if you're not the top 3 on your screen, you'll see where you are relative to the entire kind of spectrum, if you will. So that's again another way we thought that we'd bring about engagement to keep you kind of, I guess, kind of contextually situated on where you are with this. Uh, which mammal reached the first orbit? I think I know what the answer is. I shouldn't say it out loud. But let's see, we're almost done. I think there's one more question. Yep, almost. Dog and monkey. We kind of split over there, but it's actually there's a dog. This was a very interesting question that I was kind of stoked off. Largest country that has only one time zone, talking about time zones and Saudi Arabia and stuff. I didn't know that, but this is a very interesting one that I learned something new. So yeah, it's China, actually. Yeah, Australia has multiple time zones and Turkey has multiple time zones. China has only one. I did not know that China had one time zone. Um, obviously I'm getting all the answers right because I created the trivia. So it's kind of obviously it's a little bit of cheating there. Um, talking about Texas, I need to put something in about trucks. I moved to Texas, so I just am flabbergasted with the number of trucks that are running around over here. Uh, I just feel that I need to get the cyber truck just to stay stay competitive in Texas. All right. Which one of these countries was not a Soviet republic in USSR? Again, I'm going to cheat. I know the answer to the question, and we should get done with it. All right, Serbia, Moldova. Yep. So last question. This is actually the last question. So I wanted to go through this whole thing so that I can show you the report right after this. So largest planet in our solar system. All right. If you guys remember that from your elementary school, I think. Uh, Boom. Most of us remembered it, but some of us didn't. All right. It is Jupiter, actually. So obviously, the correct answer is kind of marked over there. So this is your final leaderboard, if you will, and then obviously we're done with it, and then right after that we produce a report that is like fairly extensive. Some top line analysis. 80% of us have Apple phones, about 20% are running on Android among the 40 people that just took it. On average we took about 6.5 minutes across the board. There's a little bit of a bug over here, but we have kind of the UI bug. We have to fix it up. But of the people, about 89% of the people went through this question, and these are the top 3 people who got it right on a question by question basis. So Lisa, obviously there's like a UI element there, but we'll fix that up pretty soon. You can extrapolate, like Joe got it right. He was the fastest guy for that question. Dan was the fastest guy on this question, and so on and so forth. So you can see like the top 3 guys who got it right in that question, in that leaderboard. So this gives you some more analysis. This is kind of, we talked about kind of the profiling that gives you kind of a, actually a pretty great male female representation. That's very interesting, very good. So we have kind of like half and half in terms of, at least amongst the 40 people we have, male and female representation. And you go through that, and then that's about it. I mean, the data is kind of, you can go down this list. It's pretty much the same thing repeated, subsequently. That's about it. I mean, this is this is there's a difference between like one is a poll, the other one is a quiz. This is an example of a poll, which is exactly the same like a quiz. Quite frankly, it doesn't have a right or wrong answer. So in the let me go back. In the trivia one we just saw, you can see queen, you got to select which is a right or a wrong answer. You got to set it up. Whereas in a poll model, clearly there are no right and wrong answers. So you can just ask, let's say if you wanted to, ask your preference on Pepsi or Coke, clearly that's a poll and not a quiz. Typically, you're running some sort of either a poll or a quiz model where you're trying to solicit some data from your audience to inform kind of future content or future behavior, or you're running some sort of quiz where you're trying to kind of test people in real time. And that's about it. I'm going to go back to my slides, and that's about it. I'm going to pause for a few minutes and see if there are any questions. So you can just use the Q&A thing. Okay, people are using the Q&A stuff.
Hey, we've got a couple of questions. I think so. We have the first one from Lars.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah. So Lars is asking, time scoring part optional. Yeah, it is optional. So when we started the poll, I set it up for 15 or 20 seconds, but that's optional. You can set it to infinite. Effectively, you can say, there is no time limit to this, but you manually control it. So either you can say like, hey, look, we want everybody to complete this poll in the next 20, 30, 50 seconds, and that's also configurable. Or you can say it's obviously infinite. Francisco, is asking, is multiple choice the only type of question available? The answer is yes at this point. We wanted to keep it super simple. It was an intentional design around this. We didn't want to complicate this too much. We want to keep it simple, easy to use, so that and effective. That being said, the other thing that we're working on, which I'm going to give you a little bit of a preview on, is what we are calling a comment box. But again, we're trying to innovate over here in terms of not just, hey, post some comments in, like more open-ended. Obviously, the closed-ended model is through multiple choice. And the open-ended model would be like, hey, what do you guys think we can do? So a good example of how I could have used it, frankly, in this kind of conversation, is that I could have asked you guys, hey, what would you want me to build? Or what's the next feature that's an interesting one that, given what you just saw, what could we do? And that's an open-ended comment, obviously, right? And I think the vision there is not only like, can people post their open-ended comments, but then the idea would be immediately they can vote on each other's comments, almost create like a mini brainstorming model. Like, okay, look, we want to create and post on each other's comments, and then in real time, we kind of surface out the top voted comments, so that so actually at the end of it, you can say like, okay, look, at the end of 2 minutes, you can say like, yeah, collectively we all think these are the 10 or 15 ideas we have, and collectively we all voted on it, which means these are the top 3 ideas, and probably these 2 ideas are probably worth pursuing. So so that's kind of the answer to that question. I'm going to go down the list. Lars is asking, will the eventual product include other formats, word clouds? Probably. So at this point, we're going to focus on, like I said, the principal focus is around engagement, and kind of that's kind of engagement and kind of ease of use. That's kind of complexity is something that we are kind of trying to avoid a little bit. As long as people are able to use it functionally, then I think that's going to be a larger focus than complexity. Doug is asking what kind of reports. You saw the reports are reasonably straightforward. We're not going to go too deep into kind of reporting. This is, like I said, we see this as a tool to collect spot data, not run like a serious kind of complex research project. We see, so that's kind of at least how we envision it. Again, I've done a lot of software platforms. We start off somewhere, we end up somewhere else, typically, depending on how people use it. And that's why I want to have an open dialogue with many of you. I'll send an email to all of you guys, as soliciting feedback, obviously, so that we can evolve this product together in directions that make sense and that are interesting and engaging and solving different scenarios. At this point, we've kind of focused in on solving, a few scenarios, but that doesn't mean that we're not open to other ideas.
And so Doug, the simple answer to your question around what kind of reports, like you've seen the reports, is fairly straightforward. I mean, I wouldn't say it's rocket science. Anonymous person is asking, how many students can we have in the same at the same time? It's actually like, we've tested it with over 350, 400 people across the globe. So in theory, our systems can run as many as you want. So I don't think we've had any upper limit so far. Very interesting. We are talking to a couple of radio stations actually. So they love the trivia concept as an engagement tool. Clearly, they want to use the trivia model for radio, and that would really scale up. I mean, I think obviously, depending upon the market, I mean, we could have as many as 5,000-10,000 people trying to do it in real time. So we're if we go through that, and we will be scaling up to that to do as many as we want effectively. Laura, can the pool set to be anonymous? Good question. Right now, no. Right now, clearly, like I think in either you can maybe let me think about this. Like we know exactly like Heather has responded to this particular. We don't anywhere in the screens we don't show how Heather responded, uh, but but I think you can extrapolate it. I think at least based on the points and stuff like that, you could probably extrapolate it. But that would be an interesting setting for us. Either run the poll in anonymous mode or not anonymous mode. That'll be an interesting setting that we can put in, depending upon the use case. That's a good question. I mean, the simple answer is at this point, the polls are you can be able to figure out based on the points that you get as to who answered what. So hopefully that answers the question. Anne is asking, hey, can you set this up to shoot the answers into a PowerPoint deck? That is definitely on deck. I would say, like, you're not the first person asked this. I've wanted to do it even in this particular presentation where, like, look, just, obviously I walked you through the Google Doc or a Google presentation, and can the whole thing be embedded in that? It can be technically, obviously it can be. We've not focused in on it. We've not kind of invested time, energy, and resources into it, but technically it's pretty easy to do it. Especially something like Google Docs is clearly super easy. They already have a model to do it, and if you can do it with Google Docs, you can do it with PowerPoints also. So I don't want to get into this PowerPoint versus Google Docs thing, but anyway, so the point is some sort of a presentation, kind of embed the polling into a presentation and the results into a existing presentation, if you will. That's definitely the vision. That's part of our roadmap, and definitely that's part of what we plan on doing. Hopefully that answers the question. And Jason is asking, hey, can you add pictures or graphics as part of the quizzes? At this point, quick answer is no, but I think that's a logical ask. I would argue that's not necessarily, again, not that complicated to add. So simple answer, not today. More complex answer probably in the next couple of months as we kind of mature this product. This will come online. Sarah is asking, these need to be created ahead of time. Can you create this real time? So Sarah's question is, can we, I think it's a great question actually. Like, I would need to understand the use case in terms of making it real time. I mean, theoretically, as an admin, you could go and create a poll. Like let's say, like right now, we wanted to create a poll saying that, hey, should I prioritize, let's say, adding images to polls or better reporting. Which one of the two? I could theoretically, obviously go back to my polling thing, and as you can see, I can create a poll over here and just go ahead, see this window out. I can create a poll and say like, hey, what do you think about what is the next feature? And then obviously send this up. That's the name. That's the title. All right. So next feature poll, and then and obviously, so images on the question, better reporting. So let's say these are the two questions. I can jam that out there. obviously start the poll, do the whole, as you saw, go through the whole process, send it out to you guys. You know, that's how we could do it in real time. If there are other use cases that I've missed or that we can discuss, definitely I'd love to kind of understand that. But that's how we see it happening. Sarah, so simpler answer would be like the majority of use cases that we envision is the poll is generally created, at least 15 minutes ahead of the session. You don't have to be many, you don't have to do it, obviously hours ahead. You can do it. It's pretty easy to do it, as you can see on the screen. It's not that complicated. You can do it, 10 minutes ahead of the session, or you could have somebody else. Another, we're talking to Oracle during their Open World conference, and they are thinking about having as the discussions, as keynote speakers are going in and out, they're thinking about, like, depending upon the conversation, asking, creating the poll, not necessarily in real time, but during the course of the day, as the day progresses. If people feel that they needed to ask some other questions, they can add that in, they can remove questions, and so on and so forth. Because it's so easy to create ad polls, it's I think it should work for kind of near real time kind of editing of the polls itself. Joseph is asking, okay, hopefully that answers your question, Sarah. So Joseph is asking, hey, do you have a time frame on when you could see the open-ended model? Yes, I've asked the team to, we have most of the mockups done. In fact, I can show you some of the mockups to see what it'll look like. Hold on. I think I had it in my, let me go back into presentation mode. And yeah, so, okay. So yeah, the trivia mode I already talked about. The big part of the trivia mode is really, hey, look, it's exactly like the quiz, except that, hey, if you answer it correctly, you're out of the game. And this is the live voting and comments part that I was talking about earlier on. So as you can see, the respondents can enter in open-ended comments, and then they get to vote on each of those comments, and then you can see all the top voted items effectively. So this is kind of like this is where we are tracking to, Joseph, in terms of, this is the live feed of all the comments that are coming in, and then the top voted is on a separate tab, so you can tab into that and say, okay, look, there's a whole bunch of clutter coming up, but these are the ones that people really want to talk about. So this gives that, we enable some element of crowdsourcing in here, so that, at least the data set is at least a little bit more sophisticated. So hopefully that answers your question, Joseph. Justin is asking, what is the minimum number of users you can assign to a single pose? Maximum. Like I said, I mean, we've done it with 300, 400 people. 350, I think, was the last high number we did. And if we do the deal with the radio station, it's going to be in the thousands, frankly. So it's fairly large, if you will. Tom's asking, and again, same question on anonymity. Yeah, I think at this point, we do not, I mean, I think partly it is anonymous because we don't actually display actually Heather answered this, only, is through the point system is where I feel that you could figure it out. If you answered all the questions incorrectly, then you'd get 0 points, clearly. We do something, I mean, I think it's reasonably anonymous right now. Like, for example, none of you guys could figure out what someone of the other person did. But in terms of points, you could figure out, at least on the quiz side, the points would give you some level of insight into, like, Harshad answered most of the questions correctly, and I answered most of the questions correctly, obviously because we knew the answers. But I think there is some level of anonymity already baked in. So at no point in the screens do we actually literally display the person's name and the response next to it. So it's a good question on anonymity, and we haven't, to be brutally honest, guys, we haven't even thought about anonymity. We didn't think about this clearly from that perspective. So hopefully that answers your question. Lars is asking, how do you position this product comparison to Turning Point Anywhere? Honestly, I don't know what Turning Point Anywhere is, Lars, so I couldn't answer the question. Like I said, like we're looking at an engagement tool. We're not even trying to make money off of it. We see this as a kind of a lightweight tool that folks can use in their either conference presentations and so on. I don't think, are we going to try to replace clickers and things like that? I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, it's too early for us to really think about that. At this point, we had a clear need, and we wanted to kind of keep it easy to use, like I said earlier on. So that's how we view it. Um, another anonymous attendee is like, again, I think the questions are on leaderboard, so students will see the results. Could you hide the leaderboard? Uh, that's a good point. I think we could probably hide the leaderboard, so it's not kind of in this model where every question you get to see the results. We should probably, that's an easy one. If you are in anonymous private mode, then leaderboards are not shown. That would solve our anonymity problem, if you will, right there. Nobody gets to, I mean, you get to see aggregate data, but other than that, you don't even see the leaderboard. If you don't see the leaderboard, well, clearly it'll be nearly impossible for you to figure out who's answered what. So that's a good point. We still have to think about that. That's great questions. I don't have clear answers, obviously. Joseph is asking, is there a way to export the results? Right now, no. We've got it again. Right now, we're in super beta mode, but that's a great ask, frankly. Like, hey, get the data out in a PDF or an Excel spreadsheet or even PowerPoint deck, whatever it is, right? So that's a great ask. I think like QuestionPro, we probably have a bunch of export options. When I say QuestionPro, I mean our survey product. I'm pretty sure we'll have some export options, but that's something that we'll definitely, we don't have it on the roadmap right now, but we can. That's a pretty easy ask, actually. It's not that complicated. And Joseph asked a very important question here. Hey, can I use a QR code to join the poll instead of having to type in a web address? The short answer is yes. So I think the next version of what we're going to launch is, a URL is generated for this poll also. So you can type in like the 4-digit PIN code, or it'll be QuestionPro.io/the 4-digit PIN code. And that once we have a URL, then the corresponding QR code is generated for that URL. QR code is nothing but a link or reference to a URL for all practical purposes. So that's something that again, that's something that is on the roadmap, actually, Joseph. So that's not something I'm saying we won't do it. That is on the roadmap, obviously, because other people have asked for it. So that's definitely on the roadmap. So Sarah's asking, yeah. So going back to Sarah's original question, so I'm going down the list. I mean, when she means live, yeah. I mean, actually, so your question, Sarah's question, if you can't see my screen, she says, hey, so could a faculty member create a question as the lecture is in progress, as you clearly saw in my screen right now? I mean, as I'm talking, I could create the question. It really is your ability to multitask, Sarah, is what's going to come down to it. So while you're talking, if you can create a question, you can send out a poll, you can get it out there. Francisco asking, cost with polling available at no added cost to those of us existing QuestionPro licenses. What is the impact on cost in future? I don't know the answer. I mean, the simple answer is we don't, like I said, we do a couple of tools like these. Like we have a website embedded poll thing that we also give away for free. In fact, our core essentials license is also free. So we give a lot of stuff for free. So Francisco's question is around, what is the impact on future licensing? Obviously, as any commercial entity, I can only speak to what we're doing today. It's very unlikely that we'll turn around and say like, hey, you gotta give the stuff for free and then turn around and charge for it. Unless we kind of develop new complex kind of features that are very specific or very kind of, quite frankly, enterprise integration oriented. I don't see us, that's, again, I can speak to strategy at least. We see this as an engagement tool to our existing customers, and we want to stick to that game plan, at least for the foreseeable future, quite frankly. I know that's not a hard yes or no answer, Francisco, but it's definitely a leaning yes. And like with every business, we cannot really kind of say like, hey, look, we're not going to charge for it for the next 10 years. That'll be, I don't even know whether I'll be the CEO for the next 10 years. So I have no idea what we're going to do if we sell the company or somebody acquires us. So we really cannot say, beyond, at least beyond my kind of tenure, if you will, as long as I'm around here, I guess one way to position this is, I feel that this should be a free engagement tool that we offer to our clients, and that's what I'm going forward with, and that's kind of a simplistic answer here. Lars is coming back. Regarding anonymity, could you tell people to pick a nickname? However, the question is whether you could tell people to pick a nickname, whether teacher could track who's responded how in the background. Yeah, that's a good point. It's a very, I mean, honestly, this is a great discussion. Honestly, I haven't thought about it. None of my team members also have thought about this whole question around anonymous versus non-anonymous. It seems like we need to do some more brainstorming, and maybe I'll pick up the phone and call you and talk to you a little bit more as to how, what are the gotchas of, doing an anonymous model and a non-anonymous model, or I guess, having some privacy mode in the system setting might actually solve that problem. Okay, and Lars is giving me some kind of background on Turning Point by July. So once it is required physical clickers, but now it's mostly online, similar to your product. However, there is no additional cost for students, but we have to buy the site license. Given that we already buy a license for QuestionPro, which he loves, it'd be great if you could LivePolls could compete with Turning Point in terms of features. It's a good point. I mean, it's a good, I'd say, Lars, to be blunt, it's a good kind of challenge for us that we need to compete with these guys. And again, by design, if this helps us sell more QuestionPro site licenses, that is definitely part of my thinking. Obviously, being brutally honest with you guys here, if we can add more features, to it. I'm also, I think I'm taking a page out of Amazon. Is, if you have Amazon Prime, you get Amazon Video, you get a whole bunch of dumb, things. Quite frankly, I don't know why I need Amazon Video, but I digress. So the whole point is to kind of, obviously add more value to the site license. That is kind of the long-term plan, effectively, and that's why, Francisco, I think it'll be very, very unlikely we'll charge separately for this particular tool set, because it'll be, you're already paying us for our site license, so it's included as a site license, and this becomes one more reason to go with QuestionPro for your site license for surveys also. So that's at least our strategy and thinking around this, and I've been brutally transparent with all of you around this. Hopefully that answered all our questions. Harshad, I don't think any other questions remaining, right?
I think so. We have some in the chat as well.
Okay, got it. Let me see the chat session. Yeah, so yeah, Francisco's right. Francisco is saying that, hey, look, integration with Blackboard or Canva or any one of the LMS platforms would be required to really compete with Turning Point or iClicker. So right now, clearly, as you can see, this is not integrated with any other subsystem. It's kind of a standalone kind of thing. It's reasonably lightweight, easy to use. And so a Canva integration might actually be much easier. We're planning on doing that anyway. So that's kind of the first LMS platform that we want to kind of truly, get in bed with and deeply integrate with. Would be Canva. We've heard that from a number of our university partners that Canva is kind of where they are headed towards with Instructure. So I think that's something that we are, beyond seriously considering. We actually started working on it already. Product team has already started working on, integrating QuestionPro with Canva. So I think if we do the core integration with Canva, then a lot of the scenarios can be unlocked, not only the survey side, but also the live polling side effectively. A couple other questions. Is there any bank of questions available for free? Not really. I think at this point, the assumption is you come up with a question set. Although we are thinking about adding a bunch of trivia questions. So like, we'll have them in our system anyway. So we will just enable a bunch of like trivia by category maybe that you can pick and choose if you're gonna run. I was talking to Gabe, and he runs very interesting. Every Thursday, Gabe is one of the product manager at University of San Diego, and he's like, hey, I go to a bar and I run a trivia contest every Thursday night, at 6 o'clock. They go to a bar, and I guess, obviously drink and run the trivia contest. So so we can have a library of trivia questions. I can see the trivia stuff kind of like, library working, but other than that, like the rest of the questions are going to be very contextual around quizzes and all that stuff. I can see where professors may need like a library of kind of standardized quizzes that they kind of reuse. One thing that to truly understand this, if you think, if as you saw the system, right? So let me go back to the LivePoll itself. So this there's a difference between a poll and a session. I want everybody to understand that, right? So if you think about it, each poll, like, go back to my 1 second. I'm stuck over here. So if I go back to my polls, like, we did this trivia, we did this thing all together. We can go to the analytics, and as you see, this session we had 40 people in it. Move away from these guys over, right? So and I did a test session prior to that. So you can have the same quiz and have multiple sessions for the same quiz. So if you said like, okay, look, from in the classroom perspective, let's say the same quiz needs to be administered obviously to multiple classes, then it's pretty easy to do it. So you just come back and say, hey, look, I'm going to start this thing again, and then you start a new session. Obviously the same poll or the same quiz, but a new session, and then that session is uniquely tracked separately. All right, so I think that answered all the questions in the chat session also, and we're on time. All right, perfect. I don't want to chew away, almost chewed away almost the entire hour, but thank you everybody for coming up and participating in this. I'll be sending you guys an email with like I said, with the recording of this, as well as obviously the slides that I presented. We also plan on doing, I plan on doing one of these webinars, or kind of, I call these conversation sessions, or however you want to call it, once a month as we release new features. So I'll be sending a link to that so that you can register. I don't think you need to register every time, but we'll set up a recurring webinar. I think we'll do it the first Tuesday of today's first Thursday or Tuesday. Today's Thursday, so Wednesday. We'll come with something. We'll come with something the first couple of Wednesday of every month or something like that. And then because we have a whole bunch of things that are going to get released also over the next few months, so I'll talk about that in terms of what we talked about today, and obviously especially a lot of conversation around anonymity has come up. Let us go back, think about it, and not promising anything, but definitely we can start thinking about it in terms of what we can add to our roadmap and feature set as we go along in this journey. So again, thank you everybody. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for all the comments. Super engaging, super fun. I'll see you guys. I'll send you guys an email, and I'll see you guys in about a month's time. Thank you. Bye.